A neutral country in a particular war is a sovereign state which officially declares itself to be neutral towards the belligerents. A non-belligerent state does not need to be neutral. The rights and duties of a neutral power are defined in Sections 5 and 13 of the Hague Convention of 1907. A permanently neutral power is a sovereign state which is bound by international treaty to be neutral towards the belligerents of all future wars. An example of a permanently neutral power is Switzerland. The concept of neutrality in war is narrowly defined and puts specific constraints on the neutral party in return for the internationally recognized right to remain neutral. Neutralism or a neutralist policy is a foreign policy position wherein a state intends to remain neutral in future wars. A sovereign state that reserves the right to become a belligerent if attacked by a party to the war is in a condition of armed neutrality. Rights and responsibilities of a neutral power: belligerents may not invade neutral territory, and a neutral power's resisting any such attempt does not compromise its neutrality. A neutral power must intern belligerent troops who reach its territory, but not escaped prisoners of war. Belligerent armies may not recruit neutral citizens, but they may go abroad to enlist. Belligerent armies' personnel and material may not be transported across neutral territory, but the wounded may be. A neutral power may supply communication facilities to belligerents, but not war material, although it need not prevent export of such material. Belligerent naval vessels may use neutral ports for a maximum of 24 hours, though neutrals may impose different restrictions. Exceptions are to make repairs only the minimum necessary to put back to sea, or if an opposing belligerent's vessel is already in port, in which case it must have a 24-hour head start. A prize ship captured by a belligerent in the territorial waters of a neutral power must be surrendered by the belligerent to the neutral, which must intern its crew. List of neutral states. Note, whether a state that is a member of the European Union may be considered neutral is a point of debate. This is discussed in the section below. Recognized as neutral claim to be neutral formally neutral Points of debate. European Union The neutrality of some countries now in the European Union is under dispute, especially as the EU now operates a common foreign and security policy. This view was supported by the Finnish Prime Minister, Matti Vanhanen, on July 5, 2006, while speaking to the European Parliament as Council President. Mr. Florin Kortegård described Finland as neutral. I must correct him on that. Finland is a member of the EU. We were at one time a politically neutral country, during the time of the Iron Curtain. Now we are a member of the Union, part of this community of values, which has a common policy and, moreover, a common foreign policy. Later, the Solidarity Clause in the Lisbon Treaty was deemed sufficient to replace the Western European Union Military Alliance's Mutual Defence Clause. As a result, the WEU was closed down with its mutual defence role having been absorbed by the European Union. Irish neutrality is similarly debated. The state's traditional policy of military neutrality is not defined in law, and referendums on the Treaty of Nice and on the Treaty of Lisbon were lost in part because of fears these would undermine Irish neutrality. Austrian neutrality is special, as for many Austrian citizens neutrality is a main element of the Austrian state. So while in fact neutrality currently only exists on paper, politicians do not dare to withdraw from the European Union to reintroduce a de facto neutrality, though there are several political parties whose aim is to withdraw. Neutrality to forestall invasion. Other countries may be more active on the international stage, while emphasizing an intention to remain neutral in case of war close to the country. By such a declaration of intentions, the country hopes that all belligerents will count on the country's territory as off-limits for the enemy, and hence unnecessary to waste resources on. The neutrality of Republic of Moldova is an interesting case. According to Ion Morandisi, Moldova has chosen neutrality in order to avoid Russian security schemes and Russian military presence on its territory. Even if the country is constitutionally neutral, some researchers argue that de facto this former Soviet republic never was neutral, because parts of the Russian 14th Army are present at Benderi. The same author suggests that one solution in order to avoid unnecessary contradictions and deepen at the same time the relations with NATO would be to interpret the concept of permanent neutrality in a flexible manner. Many countries made such declarations during World War II. Most, however, became occupied, and in the end only the states of Andorra, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and Vatican remained neutral of the European countries closest to the war. Their fulfillment to the letter of the rules of neutrality have been questioned. Ireland supplied some important secret information to the Allies. For instance, the date of D-Day was decided on the basis of incoming Atlantic weather information secretly supplied to them by Ireland but kept from Germany. Also, German pilots who crash-landed in Ireland were interned, whereas their Allied counterparts usually went missing close to the border. Sweden and Switzerland, as embedded within Nazi Germany and its occupied territory, similarly made some concessions to Nazi requests as well as to Allied requests. Sweden was also involved in intelligence operations with the Allies, including listening stations in Sweden and espionage in Germany, as well as secret military training of Norwegian and Danish soldiers in Sweden. Spain also pursued a policy of non-alignment, and sent a volunteer combat division to aid the Nazi war effort. Portugal officially stayed neutral, but actively supported both the Allies by providing overseas naval bases and Germany by keeping its war machine alight with the extensive sale of tungsten. According to Edwin Reischauer, to be neutral you must be ready to be highly militarized, like Switzerland or Sweden. However, other countries like Costa Rica have claimed that having no army would strengthen their neutrality and democratic stability. See also, non-belligerent, non-aligned movement, neutral powers during World War II, Irish neutrality, Swedish neutrality, Swiss neutrality, international humanitarian law, Portugal in World War II. Notes. External links. Declaration for the purpose of establishing similar rules of neutrality, with annexes, the British government's note affirming its neutrality in the French-Prussian War of 1871, and answering Prussian allegations of a hidden pro-French bias.